Chapter 2359 The True Kill 1. Intense explosions and the sounds of colliding energy filled the air. Space was torn apart, and the earth groaned in agony. Under the relentless onslaught of the group, Kwang Shao struggled to hold on, but his body was covered in more and more wounds. He could dodge other people's attacks. However, there was no way to dodge Zhang Yi's attack. You want to force me to become elemental and then use the power of the plague to attack me again? I won't give you that chance. The tyrant is not stupid. He raised his hand, and the earth around him trembled. A loud rumble followed, and from beneath the earth, enormous mountains formed from piled-up bones emerged. All sorts of skeletons surrounded everyone, and thick black mist spewed out from between their bones. Some of the bones, especially the skull, are tens of meters tall. These are the remains of all the powerful beings who have strayed into or been forced into the Dark Sun Forest over billions of years. Just by looking at the size of the skeletons, you can tell how powerful they are. The corpses possess limited combat power, but they serve as a repository for the black energy that pollutes the mind. Skull Mountain collapsed, and billions of skeletons tumbled down towards them with a thunderous roar, while thick black smoke continued to rise. Some Lunarian warriors, if touched even slightly, would quickly turn completely black, just like white paper touched with ink, becoming very similar to the raging owl in its ink-like state. Soon, they turned against their former comrades, turning their weapons on them. Ignore them, kill the mad owl, and it will all be over. Zhang Yi completely ignored the skeletons and directly expanded the scope of the myriad phenomena. Whether it's skeletons or black smoke, it would take at least 3 months to completely break through his 3,000 defenses in order to erode the dimensional gate. Everyone, don't stop. Blast him to pieces. Zhang Yi roared, his fighting spirit blazing. The main problem was that he encountered a mentally unstable night-level superhuman, and he was extremely greedy for the other party's nightly essence. With Zhang Yi blocking the troublesome skeletons, the others naturally had no worries. Various attacks came one after another, including more than a dozen epsilon-level inhumans, the weakest of whom was at the Black Chariot level. Too many ants can kill an elephant, let alone a pack of hyenas. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Zhang Yi pointed his fingers like a sword, unleashing attacks that stripped away spatial dimensions, while Kwang Shao formed a large amount of ink around himself for defense. He hated this kid from the space department. At the same time, I was incredibly jealous of this guy. Why is it that a mere 6 generations can possess power that only a demon god can wield? His left hand was raised upwards, as if to tear the sky apart, to draw in the dark power gathering in the sky. I refuse to believe I can't break through your defenses. Boom. The dark clouds in the sky seemed to have been pierced by a huge hole, and a torrent of ink as big as a small mountain crashed straight towards the area where Zhang Yi was. Why does this sentence sound so familiar? In an instant, many images of old friends flashed through Zhang Yi's mind. Ling Feng, Feng Huangyuanren, Li Changgong, and even Yatujier and Zhenglu. They would shout this phrase before they died or before they fled in defeat. Hey, why don't you guys believe that my defense is the best in the world? That being said, when has Zhang Yi ever been arrogant? The power of the demon god armor was increased to its maximum, and a demonic blade rapidly materialized in his right hand. The demon blade, Bows. With an ability index of 25,000, he fought alongside Zhang Yi every day and was fed plenty of centipedes and scraps of primordial energy. After going through many twists and turns, Boss has now made something of himself, doing better than most of his colleagues in the Knights of the Round Table. Putting aside the fact that he is brain-dead, following Zhang Yi, life has been getting better and better. Zhang Yi was adept at both offense and defense, using the myriad phenomena of the universe for defense while simultaneously launching attacks. Drifting in the Dark Realm. A dark vortex formed behind him, and a black tide surged forward along the demonic blade, instantly tearing through the sky and colliding violently with the torrent descending from the heavens. The difference in attack power between the two was not significant. Although Zhang Yi was unable to suppress Kwang Shao, He didn't need to do so in the first place. Beside him were the Silver Centaur, the Black Dragon, King Arthur, Benjamin Morgan, and other superhumans whose strength reached the level of the Black Bishop. They were the last straw that broke the camel's back. Holy crap! Attacks came from all directions, striking at the Mad Owl's body. The Mad Owl's defenses were completely shattered, and his body was once again blasted into a cloud of ink by the immense force, just like broken porcelain. This time, the ink appeared even darker. The reconstitution process was much slower, and the pain and weakness it contained were clearly palpable. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. This standoff was no easy task for him. Fortunately, the time has come. Sister Leibniz clasped her hands together, chanted loudly, and once again unleashed mourning, attacking Mad Owl. The Mad Owl's body had been shattered, yet it was still able to manipulate the ink to form a black river, using pure energy to forcibly erase the power of the plague. How could he not be on guard against the same move? Of course, he wouldn't fall for it a second time so easily. Seeing that the attack had no effect, Sister Morning also looked disappointed. After all, the difference in strength between her and Kuang Xiao was too great. Since the other party was on guard, her ability only worked the first time. But is that the end? Of course not. Zhang Yi had gathered everyone's strength, not so that she could inflict even a little bit of plague pain on the other side. What he wanted was to completely eliminate his opponent. Xian seize the opportunity and destroy him completely. He definitely can't withstand your power, Zhang Yi shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Xinxin, a girl in a black dress-style battlesuit, emerged from a shadow. She coldly stared at the Mad Owl who had returned to human form, raised her fair hand, and from the huge black mist behind her, the shattered angel puppet appeared. Zhang Yi's real killer move was Yang Xinxin. The only drawback of causality weapons is that they are not easy to hit the target. However, once the target is hit, the rewards are extremely extravagant. Zhang Yi deliberately uttered that sentence to make Kuang Xiao believe that Yang Xian's abilities were similar to Leibniz's. It is an attack of energy nature. In the hands of the fallen golem, a strangely shaped black longbow, seemingly composed of countless twisted symbols and causal lines, had already materialized. An arrow, also composed of virtual code and meme information streams, was knocked on the bowstring. Yang Xinxin manipulated the fallen puppet, its head bowed. The puppet, which looked like a terrifying doll, had a pair of strong and powerful arms. It quickly drew back the great bow, and the black arrow was aimed directly at the black ink that was the body of the Mad Owl. Memovirus loading. Chapter 2360, The True Kill, 2. Yang Xinxin softly read out the command, and the fallen puppet immediately released the bowstring. The meme arrow flew away without a sound or energy fluctuation. It seemed not to exist in this dimension, directly traversing the barriers of space and matter. The Mad Owl subconsciously condensed a large amount of black ink, which was a spatial energy that eroded dimensions. In principle, 99% of attacks using alien energy cannot escape the energy itself. Even if the attack method cannot be guessed, it can be defended against by neutralizing the energy. It's like no matter if the opponent uses bows and arrows, spears, or machine guns, as long as a thick fortress is built, it can block the opponent's attack. However, it couldn't stop the poison gas. Causality is a rule, not the energy body itself. Therefore, the meme arrow passed straight through the Mad Owl's black spatial energy shield wall. It blended into the black ink the instant it touched it. Mad Owl's mental will faltered slightly. I didn't feel any pain from the ink clone being attacked. It was as if a gentle breeze was blowing. That's it? But the next moment, he finally realized something was wrong. No. A panic scream erupted from the depths of the ink. Madman felt a cold, absolutely obedient command being forcibly written into his consciousness, rewriting his very essence. His mind began to stiffen, and he was being stripped of control over his body, as if countless invisible threads were wrapping around him, trying to turn him into a puppet to be controlled. This kind of control, which originates from the conceptual level, terrifies him more than direct harm. Don't even think about it. Before completely losing himself, the Mad Owl let out a desperate roar and used his last resort ability, causal separation. Once again, at the cost of sacrificing part of his own existence, he forcibly severed the causal link of the meme virus that was in effect. Puff! As if a piece of his soul had been forcibly torn off, the ink that the Mad Owl had transformed into churned violently, then suddenly contracted, transforming back into human form. But this time, he knelt down on one knee in midair, coughing up black blood. His breath was extremely weak, his face was as pale as paper, and his eyes were filled with the terror of surviving a disaster and boundless resentment. He glared at Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin, especially at the seemingly harmless girl, and for the first time felt a chill that he might die. Those with rule-based abilities are his greatest nemesis. Moreover, the other party's ability is of the control type, which is also the type of ability that he, with his irregular physique, hates the most. It works. King Arthur gripped the holy sword tightly, a blush rising on his pale face with excitement. This kind of attack based on causality, even if the body can split apart, will still affect the original body. He can't withstand it. Benjamin Morgan rubbed his fingers together as usual, a gold coin bouncing between them. He grinned. I knew it. With most of Earth's elite forces gathered, as long as we find the right method, there's no nut to crack. We're guaranteed to win this time. Even the usually composed Odin showed a hint of relief in his single eye. The continuous high-intensity combat, coupled with the immense pressure of facing such an almost incomprehensible and bizarre ability, created an overwhelming sense of pressure. Zhang Yi did not relax at all. Instead, his gaze became even sharper as he locked onto the ink that was constantly twisting and trying to break free from meme contamination. He knew better than anyone else that a night-level being with an ability index of 50,000 points, especially a monster corrupted by the sin of Wrath Samel and struggling to survive in a hellish place like the Dark Sun Forest for 500 years, would not only have the tricks he had up his sleeve. A dying beast is the most dangerous. Yang Xinxin frowned slightly, feeling quite regretful that she hadn't been able to subdue her opponent in one strike. Otherwise, she would have an extra night-level puppet. However, this is also reasonable. Any being of night rank is a monster, especially the Lunarians, who have developed ways to protect themselves throughout their long lives. The tyrant fears nothing more than attacks based on causality, so naturally, he has ways to deal with them. If possible, I'd like to come a few more times. Yang Xinxin raised her hand, and the arrows of the fallen puppet turned a ghostly blue. Beyond causality, she also possesses pure offensive power. Yang Xinxin, with an ability index of 38,000, is a true monster recognized by two great knights of the Aihen clan. She could easily break through the superpower index that others dreamed of improving. Lord Chaos. Let's do it again. A chaotic storm of shadows was gathering in Saladin's palm. He was ready to join forces with Zhang Yi at any moment. Good. Zhang Yi answered without the slightest hesitation. But his gaze remained serious. Even a madman, a night-level guy, was not so easy to kill. Sure enough, the beast sensed danger, and its aura became even more terrifying. It's been many years, and this is the first time I've felt this way. Have the visitors from Earth grown to this extent? Hee, it's a pity that today, you will all have to stay here and become nourishment for the demon god. The Mad Owl, holding a giant sword, couldn't help but clutch his chest and cough violently. The forced separation of his existence into two separate entities caused him severe trauma. You forced me into this. Since that's the case, then let's fall into eternal madness together. The Mad Owl's mental roars were intermittent, yet they carried a chillingly insane determination. The ink blob, tormented by the meme virus, suddenly shrank inward, no longer trying to reassemble into a human shape, but instead bursting apart. But this time, what burst forth was not ink, but a dense, almost tangible, dark spiritual fluctuation. This wave instantly swept across the entire battlefield, even ignoring all the material defenses of the universe, and directly affecting everyone's mental consciousness. Ugh, what is that? My head, it hurts so much. Apart from Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin, almost everyone else experienced violent swaying and freezing the moment they were swept by this dark mental fluctuation. The determination in King Arthur's eyes was replaced by confusion and violence. He swung Excalibur violently, but the golden sword energy was not aimed at the remnants of the Mad Owl. Instead, it swept across Odin beside him. Odin also let out a low roar, his single eye turning crimson, and lightning erupted uncontrollably, colliding fiercely with the sword energy. Benjamin Morgan watched in horror as the gold dollars pouring from his hand transformed into writhing venomous snakes that devoured him. The silver centaur that the lonely city had transformed into let out a painful neigh, its four hooves pounding wildly. The black dragon that Daolon had transformed into spewed out indiscriminate dragon breath, setting a large area of Skull Mountain ablaze. Chaos. Utter chaos. Chapter 2361, The True Kill, 3. In the blink of an eye, the Allied forces crumbled, and everyone seemed to fall into their deepest fears and madness, starting to kill each other or attack indiscriminately. The monsters they saw in each other were not allies from the same side, but monsters conjured from their fear of the Dark Sun Forest and Samel. Spiritual pollution. Born of fear, it destroys a person's will, making them utterly subjugated. Especially for the warriors of the Lunarian race, their fear of Samel is innate. The Moon Warriors of the Dark Moon Empire are in an even worse situation. They were created by Samel, so they are even less resistant to Samel's mental corruption. Soon, their bodies turned completely black, becoming ink-black people just like the Mad Owl. Only 2 people were exceptions. On the edge of the battlefield, we mourn Sister Leibniz and discipline Father Orion. The moment the dark mental fluctuation struck, the copy of the Apocalypse floating in front of Leibniz automatically flipped through the pages, emitting a soft yet firm holy light that enveloped her and Orion beside her. The cross clutched tightly in Orion's hand also emitted a resonant glow. The two had clear eyes, and although they looked solemnly at their companion who had fallen into madness, they were not directly affected. It's Samel's mental pollution. The Mad Owl amplified the pollution he himself suffered and projected it onto everyone. Leibniz's voice was filled with compassion. Orion said in a deep voice, "The power of the apocalypse protected us, but the others are in trouble." At the center of the battlefield, Zhang Yi was enveloped by an imperceptible invisible barrier composed of his powerful mental strength and spatial power, which forcibly kept the mental pollution out. He glanced at Yang Xinxin beside him. The girl remained expressionless. Her eyes, which seemed to understand cause and effect, were as clear as ever. Clearly, this level of mental interference had no effect on her. Just as the Mad Owl has methods to deal with those with the ability to deal with causality, Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin naturally also have the ability to deal with mental attacks. They made special preparations before coming. That is, they simply had Yang Xinxin shoot an arrow at each of them. The arrow of memes can completely change a person's perception. It planted the rule of resisting the influence of external mental willpower in the minds of Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin. Although the Mad Owl's mental attack was powerful, it was not enough to cover up the underlying code left by Yang Xinxin, so it was ineffective. As expected, there was a backup plan. Zhang Yi snorted coldly, his gaze sweeping over his allies who were in chaos, his brows furrowing slightly. He had considered shooting all of them with an arrow, but these guys would definitely not agree. However, this put all the pressure on him and Yang Xinxin. Xian, interrupt him. Don't let him continue to amplify the pollution. Zhang Yi shouted in a low voice. Yang Xinxin didn't speak, but the fallen puppet behind her drew back the causal longbow again, and another mimetic arrow was condensed, aiming at a core point in the darkness that was constantly emitting pollution fluctuations. Buzz. Where the arrow passed, the distorted mental fluctuations paused, and the Mad Owl let out a muffled groan, clearly injured once again. The intensity of mental pollution on the entire battlefield has decreased slightly, but those who have already been infected will obviously not be able to recover in a short period of time. It's no use. You can't stop it. Struggle and wail under the power of the demon god. The Mad Owl's voice came from all directions. His true form seemed to have completely merged into this mentally polluted area, making him difficult to detect. It seems I have no choice but to use that. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, his eyes becoming incredibly focused. He realized that conventional methods could no longer quickly resolve the situation caused by the madman, and if things dragged on, his allies, who had also gone mad, might be in mortal danger. Zhang Yi closed his left eye, and when he opened it again, his left eye had transformed into an ancient pendulum. Its minute hand swayed gently, and with a clang, it moved one notch. Then, the entire world, relative to Zhang Yi himself, fell into a state of absolute stillness. The minute hand of time, a fleeting moment in the vast sky. Envelop yourself in the ultimate power of time, then accelerate to the speed of light, achieving an absolute state of stillness relative to the world. Only 1 second. But a second is enough for him to do a lot of things. For example, in the chaotic space shrouded in black mist, accurately locate the position of the Mad Owl's true form and then lock onto him. Zhang Yi did not rush over to attack, because ordinary attacks would not be able to kill him. A world of absolute stillness, in a single second. He raised his right hand seemingly slowly, but actually with incredible speed, his mind sinking into another dimension. A door in that dimension opened, revealing his hidden storage space. A power far older, colder, and more majestic than the demon blade bows began to be drawn upon by him. Ling, may I borrow your power? As he sent out his thoughts, the phantom of a sword slowly materialized in his hand. It was a giant, ice-blue sword, its blade seemingly carved from eternal ice, its entire body radiating a quiet yet destructive glow, with a gem like a frozen star embedded in the hilt. The moment the sword appeared, the surrounding temperature plummeted, and even the black mist of mental pollution permeating the air seemed to freeze and slow down. Holy Sword, the sword of judgment and eternity. This peerless weapon, crafted with the highest technology of the Aihen clan, is also the exclusive possession of the Sword Knight Ling. You should know that this sword was once capable of cutting Mammon into pieces and sealing him away. Zhang Yi gripped the hilt of the Eternal Judgment Sword with both hands, poured his immense alien energy into it without reservation, and then fiercely plunged the sword into the ground beneath his feet. Infinite Sword Domain. Clang. A clear and melodious sword cry, seemingly transcending time, rang out. Centered on the point where the sword tip landed, an ice-blue halo instantly spread out, covering an area of several kilometers in radius. Wherever the halo passed, the structure of space underwent a fundamental change. It was no longer the broken and desolate dark sun forest, but had transformed into a domain composed of countless floating, translucent ice-blue sword blades. Infinite Sword Domain is a fusion technique combining time and space skills. After the great battle with Xinglu, and under Ling's guidance, Zhang Yi became more and more proficient in using his superpowers and gained more insights, as if he had a top-notch mentor. The inspiration for this move comes from Xinglu's binding chains, which can completely isolate space, forcing the enemy to fight against you and making it impossible for them to escape. These ice-blue blades vary in size and shape, some as large as a door panel, others as thin as a hair. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.